Hey friends, quick talk. So, there's a concept that comes up fairly frequently for us as survivors, and in meetings this comes up very regularly, it always has. And so there's a couple of concepts I want to introduce to you today that are worth discussing. It's two different psychological principles, it's two things that our brains do, especially when we're grieving, especially when we've been traumatized. And the first of them is called Pareidolia, right there. The second of which is called apophenia. These are sort of the Jekyll and Hyde situation of interesting brain mechanics, especially for us. What these are is our brain's ability to think in terms of symbolism and analogy. If you took any other animal on the planet and gave them cognition and speech, you could not get them to understand the phrase, sharpest tool in the shed. As far as we are aware, we are the first brain capable of thinking in these abstract ways. This is excellent for us in terms of art, in terms of communication, but it is terrible in terms of trauma. What happens to us when we see the person that we lost in a crowd? We see their face out there somewhere. We hear their voice just over our shoulder. We see a car driving down the street that looks like theirs, and we think, just for a moment, is that them? Visual and auditory hallucinations are the bedrock of trauma and how we deal with it. Almost every survivor I've ever encountered, and I include myself in this, has had those hallucinations, and that's what they are. Our brain is looking for a pattern. It is looking for something that doesn't exist. It's a danger mechanism. It's always better to assume that the waving tall grass has a tiger in it than it is to assume that it doesn't and be somebody's dinner. So, we look for these patterns. When we are looking for something, we are more likely to find it. If you don't know what I'm talking about, and you want to test this out for yourself, also a good way to sort of short-circuit this entire process is to pick something at random, completely arbitrarily, and then decide to go on a scavenger hunt for it for the next week. It could be anything. People yelling yellow shirts, pink cars, potatoes, 3 sevens in a row. Pick anything you like, but make sure it's arbitrary and has no connection to you whatsoever, and then go out of your way to try and find it. And you will very quickly come to the realization that once you begin looking for it, you will see it everywhere. It's not that it has suddenly appeared everywhere. It's not that people wearing yellow shirts and people driving pink cars have suddenly exploded because your mind has looked for it. It is not the Matrix. You are not reprogramming reality. Your mind is just saying, okay, for whatever reason this is significant, so I'm going to call attention to it for you since you're looking for it. That is what pareidolia does to us. It's how we're able to see dinosaurs in clouds. It's how we're able to see faces in grilled cheese sandwiches. Our brains think in terms of symbolism, simile, and analogy. So when we are looking for someone we have lost, when we have been traumatized, that mechanism goes into overdrive. We're looking for them, and we're looking for proof of their existence. So there's your visual and auditory hallucination part of this. The darker side of this, which is apophenia, is our brain's ability to attach a concept to something that does not have any correlation. And you'll see this very frequently. I'll use the number 777 again as an example. Many people believe 7 to be a lucky number. So if they see a 7 somewhere, if they're picking lottery numbers, whatever it is, they're going to be drawn to it because it has significance to them, even though they're just numbers. It's the gambler's fallacy, really. But on the dark end of things, for us as trauma survivors, what you will find very frequently is importance and weight attached to something that doesn't have it in the first place. The prime example of this is becoming obsessed over the date that the person we lost died. This is the single most common, most universal expression of apophenia that we see in loss survivors. To us, that date is significant. It is the date that this person that we cared about died. But the date itself often has no significance whatsoever to the person we lost. It's really important to remember, I'll get off on a little bit of a side tangent here. It's very important to remember, while suicide may have been planned for months, years, or decades, contingencies made, means acquired, letters written in advance even, the actual date itself appears, by all data that we have, to be vastly a matter of circumstance, not planned. There are exceptions to this, of course, there obviously are, but it's usually about 2 weeks between the beginning of the final de-evolution and the actual attempt. And anything that happens in between there can either prolong that distance or shorten it and make the attempt happen sooner. This is up to chance, vastly. And for people who attempt and survive, an overwhelming number of them say that between their brains being completely committed to this action, that they had resigned themselves to it, and actually making the attempt was under 20 minutes. The majority of those people say that it was under 5, with most of them saying it was 2 minutes or less. I tell you this to reinforce the fact that the date itself, while significant to us, may not be significant to them in any real meaningful way, even if it happened to fall on or near a significant date or a holiday. The odds are greater that that is pure circumstance, not something we should be ascribing our apophenia to inflate its importance in our minds. That is how we get obsessed with it. That's how we ruminate. Not every death to suicide is that well planned. Most are not. Most of them are impulsive. The impulse and the ideation may have been present for a very long time. The planning may have been going on for a very long time, but the actual act itself is overwhelmingly impulsive. That's the data that we have. So when we're talking about apophenia, that's sort of the hard side of it. That's the dark side of it. When we become obsessed with these dates, we become obsessed with these things, these symbols that we ascribe meaning to, and we give some sort of supernatural significance to. But there's another type of supernatural significance that apophenia gives us, and that's signs. And many people take comfort in this. Signs are wonderful. For me, it was butterflies. We'll get to that in a second. But everybody seems to have this thing that happens to them where they say, that's my loved one telling me something. They're relaying some message that whatever it is a messenger for them, and they're reminding me to do this. They're sending me love, whatever it is. And I think that's beautiful. I think that's wonderful. Now, of course, we officially are agnostic on the position because we as an organization are here to provide fact-based intervention and care, not get super esoteric. But I think that there's something to be said for the fact that almost everyone I've ever encountered in this space in all the years I've been here picks some sort of flying animal to be their sign. And I think I can count on 2 hands with some room to spare the number of times I've heard something other than a bird or a beautiful insect, like a butterfly or a dragonfly or a painted beetle or something. Raccoon, I think, was my favorite animal messenger other than a flying animal of some kind. And it's significant, I think, that even if you don't take the supernatural route in your mind, it's significant that so many of us choose those things. Here's why I think that is. We equate flight with freedom. We always have. We have been drawing ourselves being able to fly, our myths about people and gods being able to fly, all of our legends. We equate flight with freedom. I think it's significant that even if you do not take a spiritual or supernatural stance on signs as it comes to animal messengers, apophenia lets us have that moment and have that reminder because of the way our brains have been physically changed by the person that we have lost. Their significance cannot be understated to the fact that we think of them We think of the love we had for them. We think of what we now know they had been through, and our immediate reaction, our immediate desire and need is to set them free. And I think that's almost more beautiful, that they had that impact on us, that is our response. So, it's not all bad. But take care of yourselves, friends. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.